R5 Rally Championship presented by First Citizens Bank. We put you first. This is MCBI Hammer Time, rounds 12 and 13 for the R5 Rally Championship.
We begin our action with paddock favourite Stan Hartling. The Turks and Caicos resident has really grown into his Ford Fiesta R5 over the duration of the championship. Stan would start round 12 of the Hammer Time event well, less than a second behind his son Ben in run 1 and just over 8 seconds off the fastest time for the first session. Stan, like most of the R5 field, would get faster on each run and would post his fastest time on run 4. With a 2 minute and 24.40 second time, Stan would end up P10 overall for round 12. In the opposite direction for round 13, Stan would gain even more momentum and close the gap to the mid-pack with an impressive time of 2 minutes 23.85 seconds. That would place Stan 9th overall, but in very close proximity to Horton and Malalu. Stan Hartling, his most impressive event yet.
Youngest member of the Turks and Caicos rally team, rookie Ben Hartling, was keen to get back into the car after missing a few events. Running with a new navigator, Mark Hinch, Ben said his focus for the day would be building consistency and slowly trying to get back into his Fiesta R5. Although he'd get off to a bit of a slow start, he would find his best pace on the third run of the first loop with a time of 2 minutes 22.81. In the second loop, however, Ben would get a bit overconfident with a braking point and had a massive overshoot, eventually slamming the car into a berm. Mark and Ben would later drive through the stage and head back to service to get the car repaired for the rally the following day.
Paul Horton would enter rounds 12 and 13 in fine form, commenting he was really looking forward to the technical village section of the Pickering to Luke Hill stage. Interestingly, Paul would be sharing his Ford Fiesta R5 with 3-time British rally champion and long-time co-driver Matt Edwards. Paul's aim here was to get an understanding of what the Ford Fiesta can do in the hands of a rally champion and learn how the car behaves under load. Paul set his best time on run 4 with a 2 minute and 21.05 second time, just over a second slower than Andrew Malalu. Paul would end up P8 overall, but showed his growth by closing the gap to the mid-pack. For round 13, Paul really got into his groove and started to trade times with the midfield pack, even topping Andrew Malalu in runs 2 and 4. It wouldn't be enough, however, to move him up, but nevertheless a respectable performance and P8 overall.
Andrew Malalu was ready to have some fun in his Fiesta R5, mentioning to us in the morning that he's ready to just get in the car and put a smile on his face. He'd really find strong pace as the day progressed, getting locked in a tight battle with Robb Swann, posting a fastest time of 2:19.73, only half a second off Swann. For round 13, the battle continued, and Andrew would eventually lose out to Swann yet again, and would close the day in 7th place in the R5 Championship. '12 and 13, 5th overall in the R5 Rally Championship, and locked in a tight battle with Josh Reed and Roger Hill, Robb Swann was keen to drop the hammer and score maximum points for his championship result. However, Robb would struggle to get into a good groove in his Rally 2 Fiesta and would never really trouble the sharp end of the R5 group. Finishing in 6th place for both rounds, he'd end up leaving quite a bit on the table and give himself a bit of a hill to climb in the following day's event. Dark horse Mark Maloney started conservatively and mentioned that the stage felt quite slippy after his first pass through. He'd also be running with new navigator Craig Yearwood in an effort to spend some time building their working relationship ahead of the rally the following day. As we've come to see from Mark, he would eventually find his pace, and on the third run through the first direction, he'd go 5th fastest overall in the R5s, only 0.2 off of Josh Reed. As the direction flipped in the afternoon, the battle would heat up between Mark, Josh and Roger Hill, and Mark would eventually set a fastest time of 2:18.02, again only a few tenths off of Reed. Fourth overall in the R5 Rally Championship, and having finally resolved the issues with his pop-off valve on his Fiesta R5, Josh Reed was keen to get back into the car and push hard. Going third fastest on the first run through, it was clear that Josh was focused and ready to fight. On his second run, he carried a bit too much speed into a braking point and ended up losing about 5 seconds with a half spin, but Josh would eventually get his head on right, find a rhythm, and finish the first loop fourth fastest time, only 2/10 off of Roger Hill ahead. When the direction flipped, Josh would post his best time on the second run through, which would see him secure another fourth place finish, again just a few tenths off Hill ahead. Adding 24 points to his total, setting him up for a strong finish as they head into round 14 the following day.
Roger Hill was a man on a mission at Saturday's MCBI Hammer Time doubleheader. Whatever he had for breakfast was working, as Roger was quick out the gates, keeping ahead of the midfield pack and putting in a blistering time of 2 minutes 17.39, beating out Josh Reed by 2/10 for a P3 overall finish. Incredibly, round 13 saw Roger get even faster. Roger was P1 after run 2, an amazing achievement for the Skoda Fabia R5 driver. Roger, however, could not improve on his run 2 time of 2 minutes 16.66 seconds and would eventually drop to third place, but an incredible performance nevertheless. Title leader Stuart Maloney would be facing some stiff competition for rounds 12 and 13, courtesy of Britain's Matt Edwards. Stuart would start cautiously, setting the third fastest time on run 1 behind Edwards and a very fast Josh Reed. He would, however, drop 2 seconds off each of his next runs to finish P2 overall, just 1 second behind the event winner. Stuart understood for round 13 that a good finish would secure him the inaugural R5 Rally Championship crown. He battled hard with Edwards and an incredibly fast Roger Hill to take P2 overall, but a further maximum points score confirmed Stuart as champion with a time of 2 minutes 15.74, a historic achievement for the Barbadian driver in a very strong R5 class this year. Matt Edwards, 3-time British Rally champion. The Welshman is no stranger to Barbados, having coached Paul Horton and more recently joined him as a regular co-driver. But now he was back behind the wheel of an R5, sharing with Paul and looking to get some valuable seat time. Unsurprisingly, Matt had no problems in the Fiesta R5, fastest by more than 2 seconds on the first run, and would improve on each of his next 3 runs with more familiar stage time. P1 overall, and Matt showing his class throughout the morning loop. Round 13 was more of the same for Matt Edwards, with run 3 a real standout performance when he clocked a 2 minute 14.75, which would give him the event win by a second to Stuart Maloney. The MCBI season concluded on Saturday. The Barbados Rally Club's Winter Rally brought its drivers and class championships to a close the following day at venues in St. Peter and St. Andrew. With Matt Edwards back in the co-driver's seat of Paul Horton's Fiesta, there were 9 R5s in total, with newly crowned champion Stuart Maloney seated ahead of the rest of the field.
Mark Maloney would be one to watch as the day kicked off, posting a respectable time on the rally's opening stage, going 4th fastest among the R5 group. Unfortunately, Mark's rally would soon come to an end, as he would have a massive off in SS2, the Swans to Rock Hall stage, entering a left-hander with way too much pace, crashing into a rock berm and ripping off the front wheel of his Skoda Fabia R5. The car did make it back to service where it was repaired, and Mark was able to return and complete the last few stages, but would take home no points as he went OTL and would be disqualified from the rally. A sad end to what would surely have been a competitive drive from the Barbadian.
Stan Hartling, joined by Jeremy Crony. Stan would drive a consistent morning loop and would be in a constant battle with Sun Ben throughout the entire rally. Stan mentioning that he really needed to get to grips with the hill climb and technical corners of the upper parks to Haggett stage. After SS6, Stan would be 4 seconds back from Ben, but would shave some time in the following stages and narrowly miss out on P8 by just a second to Sun Ben. Great driving from the Canadian-born driver.
It can't fly it. Ring off. Side corner. Me side corner.
A bit shaken up after a big moment on the day's previous event, Turks and Caicos rally team member Ben Hartling was heading into round 14 with slight trepidation. It became a bit of a family affair as Ben would find himself locked in a tight battle with Father Stan, and after the first 4 stages, Ben would have just a 1-second lead over his father. This incredibly tight battle would continue across all 9 stages, and Ben would ultimately pip Stan for 7th place among the R5s by a mere 1 second. What an incredible testament to how close these cars can race across an entire rally. After seeming to struggle somewhat on the day's previous events, Andrew Maloney was always up for the challenge of wrangling his Fiesta R5. With longtime co-driver Jeff Goddard sitting alongside as always, Andrew was primed to have fun in the car and compete against the pack. From the get-go, Andrew would be locked in a tight battle with Turks and Caicos driver Paul Horton, and the two would only be separated by 4 seconds after the first 6 stages. Going into the final loop, despite his best efforts, Maloney was never quite able to match Horton's newfound pace and would ultimately finish the rally in 6th place, adding another 10 points to his tally. Andrew now sits 6th overall in the championship going into the final round.
One of the main talking points for round 14 would come in the form of Paul Horton. Paul definitely learnt from co-driver Matt Edwards, especially in the high-speed sections, carrying more speed and putting the car under loads he now knows it can handle. Paul knew where he wanted to attack, and attack he did on SS3. Paul put in an extraordinary time of 2 minutes 3 seconds for P3 on the stage. He stated after the run it was all about staying clean and positive and reduce the amount of mistakes. Paul would stay consistent throughout the rally and would be locked into a battle with Andrew Maloney all afternoon. Paul was rewarded for his consistency and took home P5 overall ahead of Maloney.
Right 3 don't, and keep left on line. 100, flat left to right 3 plus late. So keep right over crest, to left 3 plus. So keep mid right 5 times 4 late. 50, left 3 plus opens. 70 right 4 over crest.
Britain's Robb Swann, co-driven by Darren Garrod, were ready to hit the ground running. The Brit commented that he was ready to push and would be trying to maximise each stage to earn maximum points to climb the overall standings. Robb got off to a good start and throughout the first 4 was locked in a tight battle with Roger Hill as the pair swapped times. By the end of SS6, only 4 tenths would separate Robb in 4th from Roger Hill in 3rd. Incredibly tight battles could be expected right up until the end. Ultimately, Robb would have to accept his 4th place spot as he never seemed to have quite enough pace to eat into Roger Hill's lead. Robb would grab up a valuable 14 points and is now sitting 4th overall in the championship heading into the final round.
Roger Hill was locked into a 3-way battle for 3rd place at the BRC Winter Rally, trading times with Robb Swann and always trying to catch the super fast Josh Reed. Roger would consistently get the most out of his Skoda Fabia R5. An intense battle ensued with Swann, but Roger would come out on top with a very close 3-second lead after the 9-stage 33-kilometer event to take the final spot on the podium in 3rd place.
After a strong performance on the day's previous events, Josh and co-driver Mark Jordan were ready to push going into round 14 for the BRC Winter Rally. Reid would be second fastest of the R5s on the first 4 stages and would head into SS5 with a comfortable 7-second lead over third place sitter Roger Hill. Although Josh didn't quite have the outright pace to match Stuart Maloney, he was incredibly consistent and would maintain second fastest R5 on all but one stage, SS9, where he went fastest amongst the whole group. It was clear his confidence in the car was growing, and after 33 stage kilometers, Josh would secure second place overall and take home 22 points. Josh now sits third in the championship with only 3 points separating him and Roger Hill. As we go into the final round, it's going to be all or nothing for that second place spot.
Left 5, 25, left 5 over bump, right 3 over finish.
Barbadian Stuart Maloney obliterated the FIA BMF R5 Rally Championship after sealing a historic title with victory at the BRC Winter Rally. Stuart was quickest on all 9 of the demanding stages, cementing himself as truly the one to beat in the R5 class for the foreseeable future. However, the BRC Winter Rally's technical stages and huge jump took no prisoners, as Stuart himself was incredibly lucky not to retire from the event on SS7. Stuart launched his Skoda Fabia R5 Evo 2 on the Swans to Rock Hall jump, nosedived the car violently and lost control. He careened across the road in spectacular fashion and went head-on into a telephone pole, cutting it completely in half with power lines down. Miraculously, Stuart would drive away from the accident, and with the stage now cancelled, would get his car back to service for repairs. With the help of the amazing Pro Auto Works team, Stuart would head back out and earn his title as the R5 Rally Champion, a dominant and consistent display from Stuart this year. The R5 Rally Championship returns to asphalt for the final round at Ultrafest November 19th at Bushy Park in a head-to-head racing event. We'll see you there.